If you're not happy with the way things are, get off your ass and make a difference. Australians are such whingers, happy to bitch sotto voce about the status quo, but pretty quiet on the stand up and be counted front. And that's got to change, because the bullshit's only getting deeper and we're all swimming in it. This report is about social justice and your safety, and how the Highway Patrol in Australia's most populous state, New South Wales, is out of step, controlled by a hierarchy that appears to me intensely narcissistic. I've formed the view that this is because they've been mainlining their own bullshit for way too long. Ironically enough, they appear to be unpoliced, a law unto themselves. So here's the backstory. On the 15th of July, I got a very strange email from Rudy Lammers, the Chief Police Officer for the Australian Capital Territory. That's a tiny little patch of dirt where we hide our great nation's capital, Canberra, where all the politicians hang out. And I point this out only because of YouTube's immense global reach. If you're not from around here, that's where we're talking about. So the top cop from Bullshit Mountain reached out to me, and that doesn't happen every day. Even stranger, he was not alleging that I was an asshole on the basis of something I had said. Now this may shock you, but I tend to get that rather a lot. So this communique from Canberra was truly weird. I felt like Alice down the rabbit hole, which was kind of nice. I haven't felt like Alice in such a long time. Officer Lammers wrote to tell me that his department had completed a 2-year review of police pursuit policy in the ACT, and that my reports on police pursuit in New South Wales had been used for reference in that review. Who knew? He sent me the summary so that I could check the accuracy, and then, politely, but with command authority, he asked me to shut the hell up about it until about now. Which I did, because they hadn't published the review yet. So earlier this year, the cops in the ACT, they changed the way they conduct pursuits. They stopped pursuing alleged offenders for suspected traffic offences and crimes against property. They stopped trivial pursuits, in other words. Pursuits in the ACT are today limited to situations where there's an immediate or ongoing risk to life or serious injury posed by the scumbags who are out there driving among us doing the fleeing. In other words, the risk of not pursuing in the ACT has to exceed the risk of pursuing. If I could congratulate the entire ACT Police Department on this, I would, personally. Even though I know the police union and some officers are scaremongering the whole thing because they want to return to the bad old days of trivial pursuit. This new ACT pursuit policy is absolutely the right thing to do, and I applaud Officer Lammers and his department for putting community safety first. Well done. I'm kind of chuffed to be included in the review, frankly. It's a good feeling because in a very, very small way, I'm pleased that I might have made a difference, which is not something a reporter can say very often. If you want to know what I have against old-style trivial pursuits, there's a link to the video on that, which was used basically in the ACT Pursuits Review. Briefly, the evidence demonstrates unequivocally that pursuits are both ineffective and outrageously dangerous, just outrageous. A pursuit is appropriate, I guess, if a few jihadis are headed to Parliament House in a Camry full of Semtex and some cesium-137, and perhaps looking forward to dinner and a movie afterwards with the virgins. But it's impossible to make the case that pursuits are justified on the basis of a busted tail light or dozens of other trivial traffic offences. Just to be clear on this though, fleeing is a crime. It's socially disgraceful and incredibly dangerous. I'm not criticising the officers who pursue. I'm thanking them sincerely for their service. The only people I'm criticising here are the arseholes who flee and the senior police and politicians in New South Wales who fail to put public safety first because they're muppets. Personal opinion. This is an evidence-based good call from ACT Police. But we live in a world fuelled by bullshit and media bias. Everything's a soundbite. And incidentally, the bias is towards conflict and laziness. That's reporters and the media executives together in a nutshell. Opinion determines policy, disgracefully enough. And the New South Wales Police Commissioner actually has a press secretary. For fuck's sake. Against this bullshit-drenched backdrop, ordinary people like you and me feel very small in comparison to big government arseholes and larger corporations. The cops, Volkswagen, the ACCC, Goliath didn't seem that big to David. Important issues like ethics and morality, community safety, critical thought and logic, they often get swamped in a sea of expensively crafted bullshit. So when I talk about my jihad on bullshit, this soundbite culture where we all tolerate every opinion, no matter how staggeringly bullshit they are, this is the front line of that battle. Like the old adage, standing for something or falling for anything. I vote heavily for standing, for evidence, for critical assessment, for accountability, for kicking bullshit and the purveyors thereof in the nuts. It's what they deserve. And on this, in my view, the New South Wales Deputy Premier and Police Minister Troy Grant and New South Wales Police Commissioner Andrew Scipione deserve, in my opinion, to be held to account for what I consider to be their bullshit stance on police pursuit in New South Wales. I'm going to enjoy this. Mr. Grant is in charge of a police force that stopped publishing its pursuit statistics in its annual report about 10 years ago. The New South Wales cops did not do this to save paper. They did it because the statistics were monumentally, breathtakingly, embarrassingly shit. Not good for the soundbite landscape of modern media discourse. So instead of fixing the fundamental problem, they locked it away. And in a free country like Australia, that's bullshit. Those stats, fleeing offenders, scumbags, simply escaped 55% of the time. Only 9%, that's 1 in 11 pursuits, were initiated for a suspected criminal offence. And even then, some of the crimes were trivial in the context of requiring immediate apprehension. But the innocent bloodshed, well, that was and remains very real. Talia Toifaga, 17 months old, a little girl playing innocently in the backyard, killed when a pursuit went nuclear. The fleeing vehicle and the police car crashed straight through her fence. She was robbed of, 80 years of her life. But Talia's parents will take that day to the grave. I also wonder how the officer driving that police car is holding up. PTSD? Not fun. Cops get hurt too, Senior Constable Jim Affleck, killed in 2001 by a complete scumbag after a 40-minute police chase that reached 180 kilometres per hour. The cops were anticipating Constable Affleck's deployment of tyre-shredding road spikes to be quote-unquote textbook operation. I spoke to a paramedic who attended that event. I'll spare you the gruesome details of literally picking up the pieces. How about Sergeant Jeffrey Richardson, killed this year, 15 years later, same shit, different day. Sergeant Richardson lost control of a police car and died on the way to assist a botched pursuit where a 34-year-old scumbag named Paul Robertson successfully fled and escaped from the cops multiple times. He's one of those 55% who just get away. So here's the thing. The cops arrested that scumbag Paul Robertson 2 days later. They used the high-tech miracle of knocking on his door and handing him the bracelets. They could, of course, have done this without the pursuit, and Sergeant Richardson would be enjoying dinner with his wife and children tonight. As impressive as a police funeral is, and they are impressive, that would be a whole lot better. For fuck's sake, if this is not evidence that there are easier, safer, path of least resistance alternatives when life and limb is not immediately threatened. This shit keeps happening in New South Wales because, if numerous media reports are to be believed, Troy Grant, a former police officer, remains a huge fan of the way New South Wales Highway Patrol does business, despite the evidence to the contrary, apparently. Based upon the information I've seen, I've formed the opinion Mr. Grant's position is disgraceful. On the 15th of March this year, Troy Grant gave a 1,085-word tribute to the late Sergeant Jeffrey Richardson in State Parliament. He concluded with the following words: "Now and forevermore, Sergeant Jeffrey Graham Richardson's name will be etched onto the police wall of remembrance. He will always be part of the New South Wales police family, and he will never be forgotten." This is, of course, an excellent soundbite, and it was picked up extensively in the media. Actually, a ballsy reporter in Sydney's Daily Telegraph newspaper, Ben McClellan, was brave enough to ask Commissioner Andrew Scipione at the funeral about changing the New South Wales so-called safe driver policy in the wake of Sergeant Richardson's death. Scipione replied, "Today is about saying goodbye, not looking at policies." Also an excellent soundbite. But the fact is, these two men are responsible for the pursue at all costs policy that resulted in the death of Sergeant Richardson. Sergeant Richardson is one of those costs. When I searched for reports on their actions and comments at Sergeant Richardson's funeral, I found a great deal of empty rhetoric, maybe even sincere rhetoric, who knows. But I did not see a whole lot of accountability for the policy that got Sergeant Richardson killed. And I think many people would consider that also disgraceful. 2 New South Wales police funerals were held for line of duty deaths in New South Wales this past 12 months. One was for Curtis Chang, shot by Farid Khalil Muhammad Jabbar. The other for Sergeant Jeffrey Richardson. And what does that tell you about the 2 greatest occupational safety threats to police in 2016? In June this year, just a few short months later, a 15-year-old boy suffered serious head injuries because another New South Wales police trivial pursuit went nuclear. Way to go, making the roads safer, you dicks. 15 years old, brain injured. Well done, Troy Grant, Andrew Scipione. Good policy. Following that incident, which was widely criticised, Troy Grant was quoted in the ABC News as saying police pursuit policy settings, the ones that got Sergeant Richardson killed, in New South Wales were of the highest standards. In the same ABC report, Deputy Commissioner Catherine Byrne was quoted as saying officers took pursuit, quote, very, very seriously. She was further quoted, "The safe driver policy we have in place places enormous governance and protocols on when we can engage in pursuits, what we do when we're actually in pursuits. Our police are trained, they have skilled driver trainers who take them through all the possibilities that could arise if they do have to engage. It's not necessarily something that police want to do, but sometimes it's something that police have to do." I don't know about you, but I'm starting to feel like this is all just platitudes and bullshit lip service sound bites from top cops and politicians. For starters, the safe driver policy is not a public document. It's a secret. So how the fuck would we know? We just have to decide if we trust the endless platitudes and seemingly zero facts that flow like a tsunami of bullshit from Mr. Grant's and Ms. Byrne's lips on this subject. I remain open-minded, like most critical thinkers. I'd be overjoyed to see the evidence. The stats, this many offenders escaped, that many were apprehended. There's been this much trauma, that much cost, and these crimes were prevented. Here's the ROI to society. Sadly, however, none of the top New South Wales cops seem ever to rely on facts or evidence to justify how allegedly correct New South Wales police pursuit policy is. Mr. Grant's claim that those policy settings are of the highest standards, really? I wonder if he would be prepared to tell that to the parents of the recently brain-injured 15-year-old. Here's another tasty little morsel of evidence. New South Wales is out of step. Queensland has a limited pursuit policy that is predicated upon public safety. Victoria, limited pursuit policy. The ACT, limited pursuit policy. Tasmania, limited pursuits. New South Wales, we have Troy Grant, Andrew Scipione and Catherine Byrne believing, but apparently proffering zero evidence, that the trivial pursuit policy settings are of the highest standards. 3 other states and the ACT have reviewed their pursuit policy. Presumably, hard evidence was analysed by experts. Those 4 jurisdictions independently formed the evidence-based conclusion that limited pursuits were a superior way to do police work. Less harm, greater benefit to society. In New South Wales, the public remains willfully uninformed about the stats and completely in the dark about the policy. There's no substantive difference between all 5 jurisdictions. Same country, same culture, same crimes, same basic justice system. So it seems to me that mutual exclusivity pertains. If it's right to pursue for everything from aggravated farting, the New South Wales approach, then it's wrong to limit pursuits to only the most dire circumstances, which is how they play in the other jurisdictions mentioned. They can't both constitute best practice. Either Queensland, Victoria, the ACT and Tasmania have all fumbled the ball here, kowtowing to bleeding heart lefties, whatever, or Troy Grant, Andrew Scipione and Catherine Byrne are feeding us all something of an epic bullshit sandwich and hoping the calibre of and the thickness of the bread will help you believe that it's roast fucking beef. Experts who disagree with Grant, Scipione and Byrne on the best approach to pursuits appear from the news to include the New South Wales Deputy State Coroner Hugh Dillon, whose official criticisms of pursuits are nothing short of scathing. Another New South Wales Deputy State Coroner, Harriet Graham, is also critical of the farcical 5-year delay in bothering to review pursuit policy in New South Wales. MP David Shoebridge invited Troy Grant to, quote, show a bit of courage on this. Shoebridge says around 50 people are injured every year flowing from police pursuits, most of which start as minor traffic offences. He added that Mr Grant should stare down the New South Wales Police and say it's time that we had a 21st century pursuits policy in New South Wales modelled on international best practice, one that actually keeps police safe and keeps citizens safe. The facts that we do know are entirely inconvenient for Grant, Scipione and Byrne. I looked for anything from them that wasn't what I would call empty rhetoric, highest standards and very, very seriously. Could not find a substantive fact, and I hate it when bureaucrats treat the public as if we're just idiots. I don't feel like a bullshit sandwich. Show me the numbers. This is what the public deserves. How about the facts? To me, the New South Wales Police Force seems like a self-obsessed gentleman's club, at least at senior management level. Troy Grant, it appears to me, is either a weapons-grade bullshitter on pursuit or flat-out delusional, certainly out of step with those other states in the ACT. If he is right, release the facts, as in, here's the fucking evidence. Present it to the ministers and the top cops in those other 4 jurisdictions. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that discussion. Queensland Police Commissioner Ian Stewart told the public in 2013, following a review of that state's limited pursuit policy, that lives had definitely been saved. He said it highlights the fact that the tragedies that have happened in the past as a result of police pursuits have not been evidenced since we've had the restrictive policy in place. Next time one of these powerful, high-ranking officials steps up to a microphone and offers you his or her latest bullshit soundbite, doubtless to the effect of, "Don't worry about the facts, it's all good, rest easy, we've got it all under control." Do factor in all this information and form a balanced, critical view of your own, won't you? Remember it when the polls open, especially in the case of Mr. Grant. And remember also, if you're an Aussie, you still live in a free country, a secular democracy, at least for the time being. When you feel beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men, or just dickhead bullshitters in powerful positions, don't fall for it. Have a spray. Stand for something. Perhaps even if only in a small way, you really can make a difference. I'm John Cadogan. Thanks for watching.